by saying that this meeting of the cemetery committee is being recorded in both audio form and in voice form, and so be aware of that. And and we're doing this to comply with the state regulations on public meetings. So if you will,
you also you just want to open the meeting too, just to call it to order.
yeah, I will. If I can just give me one, just let me fumble around here for 1 second, because I have to open up. I have to just get my oh, here it is. Okay, call to order. So this is a meeting of the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery Committee, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I've just announced that we're being audio and video recorded. And so I think the agenda items that I have the agenda from last time. So I think we're just going to do what we normally do, and that is to start off with the deed signing discussion.
So you just need to do a roll call of who's present to comply with since you're on Zoom.
All right, okay. Brian Davidson.
I am present. Thanks, Leo.
Okay. Rod Rydell.
Present.
Jerry Susie.
Present.
And let me see. Okay, hold on 1 second. Who else?
Rebecca.
I see you, Rebecca. Okay. So,
Present.
Carol's present physically. So here we go. All right. So I would like to tell you that there is a deed signing process. We're all familiar with this. And Tish came by today and told me about it. So is there anything you need to say about this, Tish? It's just normal requests, I believe, for lots.
Yeah, no, just typically they're signed at the meeting, but you signed them at your house today.
Yeah. All right. So there's nothing unusual. It's just a sale of lots. So that's what the deed signing is all about. Hold it 1 second, please. Just 1 second. I'm on a call. I'm on a call. So can you take this thing? Oh, sorry about that. I display a great deal of professionalism in these. I can see that. There. Sorry about that. Okay, so the next thing we'll discuss is the next proposed meeting, and I believe it is for November 3rd. Does anybody have any comments or tell us that they won't be able to make it? Otherwise, we will schedule our next meeting for November 3rd, and I believe we are kind of held in limbo here as to whether it will be a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting. Do you have anything for us on that, Tish?
No. Justine, I don't know if you've heard anything, but I haven't heard anything. No, we haven't heard anything yet.
Okay, all right. So I guess we'll just assume it's going to be a Zoom meeting, because and until we hear different, we'll assume it's going to be a Zoom meeting. And then approval of the minutes from our last meeting on September 1st, 2021. Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Leo, I'll make a motion to accept the September 1st, 2021 committee meeting minutes as drafted.
I'll second the motion.
Good. Seconded. Hey, approved. Oh, well, we have to vote on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Rebecca.
I read them, and as far as I know, they are as stated, approved.
Okay. Brian.
Approved. Aye.
Rod.
Approved.
Jerry.
Aye.
Leo. Approved. Unanimous. Okay, so next item is D1, staff report. Now, Aaron is not going to be able to attend this meeting, so he has asked Tish to give us a full detailed staff report.
He may have asked for that, yes. Yeah. We'll see. I did talk to Aaron. So for some follow-up items, as far as stone walls go, that's in engineering's lap right now. We don't have any current update for you, but engineering is definitely working towards getting some people to look at the walls. The headstone repairs maybe should have started already, but haven't. As you all know, our weather has been horrible and we've had a lot of rain. So the person that we've hired, Kai, is on Staten Island right now, finishing up a project. He thinks he'll be here next week.
Oh, good.
So yeah, he just has been delayed because of all the rain. It's been tough. It has been tough. It's been a tough year. We think we'll see him next week. He said he'd call me during the week and let me know what his plans were. The digitizing of the records and the maps is ongoing. We're hoping that is going to be live by the end of the year. We still have a little bit of tweaking to do on the maps. The Tyler family donation, the family that donated some money for us to do some plantings down in the 9th hole, down along the wood line.
Yep.
Those have been mostly done. We planted, I think, 25 rhododendrons and viburnum, and Eric wants to put 8 more in. So those were possibly purchased early this week. They were chosen or purchased, and they should be in the ground by next week. And then that area could be done. We're going to talk to the family and see if they want to expand it at all. There's a little more money to spend, so we're going to talk to them about what they want to do, but should be done. They're happy with what it looks like already, so the 8 more shrubs will definitely help.
Can I ask a question, Tish?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those plantings that are on down near Cat's Pond, along that wall, that was privately funded.
Correct.
Okay, and did they give a reason why they wanted to fund it?
To screen the cemetery, to provide a little bit of a better screen or buffer between the houses and the cemetery.
Okay, all right, because I know personally I've been down there and there's a lot of, well, I had an incident where the people just let their dogs run out, and I was actually walking with mine on a leash and got attacked by him. But I've been by there when there's just been a lot of noise, and you know, it's not really becoming of a cemetery. So I think this is a very, very good move, and I suspect that whoever funded this did it for that reason, to block out the.
Yeah, they have a lot in the area.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Yep. This past month, we had 3 interments, two interments of cremated remains and 1 full interment, and sold 11 lots with Justine's help.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, it was good. And as far as we're just hopefully doing a final cut before our next meeting and starting on leaves, and I'll be picking the flags up off the graves of veterans probably starting next week. I want to start early this year because I want dry days. We don't have a lot of those this year, but they're hard to pick up when the dowels are wet. So start removing those in preparation for hopefully a Veterans Day ceremony here on November 11th.
And so the flags will all be down by Veterans Day. Is that the plan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that's good.
Yep.
This is Rod. I have a couple of follow-up questions. The first relates to the headstones. For this year, could you just give me the ballpark of what we're paying for this and how many headstones are going to be repaired or established or replaced or recited in the cemetery? what's the unit cost for a head, for each headstone?
We don't get a unit cost, we get a total cost, because each stone probably has a different cost.
Sure.
So we don't get a per stone cost, and I don't, were you able to find that today, Justine?
Yeah, so they're going to reset and repair 27 headstones at a cost of $8,100, and then
Okay.
reset and repair 5 footstones at a cost of $1,000. So the total is going to be not, and they're also going to do the treatment with the D2 biological to remove the lichen, and that's no cost. And so the total is $9,100 for the 27 headstones and 5 footstones.
Okay, and one more follow-up. Last year, we had, I think it was 29 headstones that were repaired. What was the budget? What was the payment for that? Was that around $10,000 for 29?
I'll have to look, but
It was around that.
I don't know what you say. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Okay, well, it's not important. I'm just trying to get a ballpark figure. The reason for my asking these questions is I'm just trying to gather information in the event that we file for a grant proposal, and I'm trying to estimate what the cost would be for restoring or repairing headstones on a general basis. Thank you. That's great. The second follow-up question is regarding the Tyler family donation. That was a private donation. How did the money flow to the cemetery? Did it go directly to the town as a designated donation to the cemetery? Did it have to go through the Friends of Sleepy Hollow? How did it get to you to be able to spend it?
It went through the Friends. So the process is, in order to donate, I think it's more than, don't quote me, but I think more than $5,000 has to be approved by the select board. So rather than the Tyler family having to go to the select board, they donated it to the Friends of Sleepy Hollow, who are more easily able to accept donations. The Friends then went to the select board and gifted it to the town. And it was put in a fund it's a separate fund. It's all by itself somewhere in our funds. There is a Tyler family fund that the money was put into. So all it will be used for are plantings that they approve of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
May I have a question? I have a question to Rod's follow-up question, if I may. The headstones that are going to be repaired and restored, where are they located? Are they all over, or are they
Mostly on the Front Hill and Authors Ridge.
Authors Ridge?
So Authors Ridge and that front, I call it the Front Hill, the New Hill section of Sleepy Hollow, the section closest to town.
Yeah. Mhm.
A whole bunch on that old hill and Authors Ridge, and then a couple others on Sleepy Hollow Ave, I think.
Okay, because this is Leo, I'm sure you got it.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so this actually it sounds like this will take care of that problem. I received an email from a friend who, I had gotten an email from another friend who made some rather strong comments about the condition of the Authors Ridge headstones and so forth. And so he knew that I had been, he was thinking when I was on the committee 20 years ago. But anyway, he asked me if I could do anything about it. So I was, and I know that I believe that Ern has gotten a copy of that now. So that's good to hear. Thank you. The dog. That's the end of my question. I'm done.
Yep. All right.
That's all I have for staff report, unless it's any other questions.
Well, that was good. Thank you very much. Okay, so requests, the next item, D2, is a discussion on the request from the Friends of Sleepy Hollow for an event on October 2nd, 2022. So it's a year away, but they're I think Aaron, I think it was sent out. Justine, was that, that request sent out to everyone?
Yes, so it should be in the, it should have been in the packet.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, if they've done it in the past, I don't see any reason for us not to, let's have them do it again. Does anyone else have any feelings about that?
This isn't anything they've done before.
It isn't anything they've done before.
No.
Okay, I thought it had been, the way I thought I read it is that they will do it the same way they have done some other type of,
They talked about 3 probably years ago when they had the Thurston, the Thurston Hanley Garden.
right,
They dedicated the stone that's in the middle of that like 3 years ago.
yeah,
I forget, like on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and I came in and put up, I think, 3 tents, because of course it rained. Put up some little tents, and they had some refreshments and had a little ceremony there. And that's what they refer to in their letter.
okay,
That was all just in that one location. And no graves it wasn't on graves, it was in open space near the Thurston Hanley Garden. What they're proposing looks like it's going to be more of a tour around the cemetery, so there'll be different locations. And I don't know, is somebody here from the Friends to talk about it? I can't see all the names.
No, but I was there at their last meeting, and the comments were general at this point because they're getting an invitation together, and I think they're still working out the details of the event.
Yeah, I think the only thing that obviously we can't control is whether or not we have a funeral someplace near where they're going to have one of their speakers. And then I would wonder also, like, what type of setup they're going to do. Are they having tables on things? We wouldn't want them to set things on people's lots.
Hmm.
So just to follow up on that line of questioning and your comment, Tish, is a Sunday used by families in the cemetery, for burials?
I
So,
have 2 this Sunday and 1 next Sunday.
okay, so,
Yes. Yeah.
so that's a concern. And,
Yeah, there's nothing we could predict until 2 or 3 days prior, really.
right, and the other question is, what's, if one was going to do this, would we ask them to cap the number of participants or the number of attendees? I mean, it's one thing to have 25 people. It's another thing to have gathering at the garden, at the Hanley Commemorative Garden with refreshments. So that's, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what their plan is for parking. I don't know, because they just said a public event. So I don't know if they've gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
Something, I mean, it's good to celebrate it, but they probably need to get some more detail in their plan.
We're going to be sending out, I think, a townwide mailing on the event.
Leo?
There could be quite a few people there.
yeah, so, what, then
Jerry's got it.
we should probably have a response, saying these are our concerns, and what do you plan to do about it? You agree?
Leo?
Yeah.
May I make a,
Yeah,
may I speak? Okay, so, we've had, to my recollection, at least one request that, is kind of like this, and I think it was a dance troupe that wanted to hold and film a performance at the Melvin Memorial. And I think, we said no. And I think in response to, some of Rod's questions, whether or not this takes place and any kind of conditions is the purview of this committee. So that's the next point I want to make. And just that this seems like a pretty big step. I mean, I've got some experience with festivals and outdoor events and things. And as I read this, it has the flavor of an outdoor event. of the festival. And in a lot of ways, I'm cool with that as a general principle. In another sense, though, as a member of this committee, I think we're going to take this very, very seriously. And yeah, it's a year off, so there's really no like need for us to respond immediately. I think that we need to chew on this. That's my point. Thanks.
Oh, no, Jerry, and thank you very much. I agree with you. And, you know, Tish brought up some things I frankly hadn't thought about myself. And so I think that we need to put our heads together and say, you know, here's our concerns. Please tell us how you're going to address them before we can make a decision.
Well, I think that's what they're asking for. So they just gave us a preliminary idea of what they want to do, but they're asking for our input on that. It's pretty clear in the letter, actually.
Okay.
I am curious, who ran the event celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Melvin Memorial? Do you remember that, Tish?
The kind of rededication after we
Yeah.
did it, we did.
We did. Okay, because that was pretty well run and that had a substantial crowd.
Yeah, that was all public works staff in the committee.
Oh, okay, okay. So I think it's something that's doable, but it may.
It was also just in one location. I don't know what their map looks like as far as where they want to have people walk to.
Yeah, that's a good
About
point.
some sort of like a scavenger hunt type of thing for kids and for adults.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they're talking about being. It just
Yeah.
covers more ground.
And I'm not sure they really know at this stage of it. I think,
Right.
again, they were just giving us
Right.
a heads up and
Yeah, we've got a year, so they can probably get some of those details together.
yeah. Mhm.
And
Okay,
again, we could have a funeral in any one of those locations. So, yeah.
yeah, okay.
If I may, I just want to reframe something that Leo said. I don't think it's incumbent on us to say what our concerns are. I mean, our concerns are the cemetery.
Yeah.
I think it's incumbent on anybody coming to us with an idea to tell us more about their idea.
Well, and that's what they plan to do, I'm sure. I mean, seemed to be the essence here. Excuse me, I'm just reading their letter.
Rebecca, maybe the best response is we'll take you up on your invitation, your offer to attend our next committee meeting and, you know, have someone come and then we can have a discussion to hear more. We can ask questions based on and say, if you have more, we would really like to have, as Jerry was pointing out, we'd like to have a more detailed you know, idea of what it is that you have in mind.
Yeah.
We can give you appropriate feedback. Right? Because
Okay, I mean, that sounds very logical, so.
I agree with Jerry. It's not our job to design the event.
No, and that's,
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't,
No, I'm thinking that out loud, Rebecca. That's,
okay,
yeah, that's me just thinking out loud.
okay.
Yeah, I guess the other concern I did have is it appears to be some type of a fundraising activity. Did I read that into it, or does everybody else get that same impression? It's to ultimately raise, get more membership into the Friends, which.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
but that's not fundraising necessarily. That's a different goal.
Right. Well, I think what we can do, Rebecca, is invite them to give us a presentation at our next meeting. We can put it on
Sure.
the agenda,
Mhm.
and then we can discuss whether it's appropriate to do that in the cemetery or not.
Sure. Okay. Their meeting is next week, so I can bring that to their attention.
Good. Okay. Well, this is good. I'm glad they've given us a year to do this. So,
Right.
and I agree with everybody. I just think that you're right. It's not our spot to say here's what we don't want. It's their responsibility to come to us and say here's what we would like to do. and then we can discuss it. So if you can relay that message to them, Rebecca, and have someone give a presentation with the details at our next meeting, it should be pretty easy to deal with.
Fine.
Okay, great.
If I could just mention, though, if the committee could reread the letter that Kevin Plodzik sent us, that it does help to give you some idea of their approach to it. And, you know, he mentions details and so forth. So I would hate for him to say, well, I said that in my letter to you. So,
Yeah.
so it probably makes sense to just familiarize yourself with it since it was in the packet anyway. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So Rebecca, please pass on, you know, my feedback, which is I've read it. It's a nice general presentation.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear some specific details because the general question raises general and specific concerns.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'll get somebody to represent them at the next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, anybody else have comments on that? If not, we'll move to D3, which is a petition for purchase of 8 single graves by the Chan family. And if you want to, Tish, I can give a little background, and that is that we have a cap on the number of gravestones, graves that can be purchased by a family, because we don't want to have some groups come in and buy, 100 lots or something to that effect. So we set a limit on the number that can be purchased by a family. Now, in a large family, it appears in this case, they're going to want to exceed the limit. I think that's a good summation of what their request is.
Exactly it.
So I don't have a problem with, a large family buying more. And then I think it's 6. Is that what we have at the moment?
Correct.
Buying 6. So, I'm fine with it, but I'd like to hear if anyone else has issues or, how we should deal with this in the future.
Oh, the question. Oh, sorry, Jerry,
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, so we put the regulation in last year, or the year before, and anybody who wants to exceed, they just request and the board votes whether to accept it or not. That's
Right.
pretty much.
So just the background question. Tish, are these all adjacent lots? Would these be adjacent lots?
Yes.
Because it certainly seems like there are other families that have dispersed lots in the cemetery that I think, I'm not sure what the count is, but I was thinking of the Hoare family, Hoar. You pointed out the different, I don't know how many of individual graves that family has, but they seem to have.
The Wheelers have thousands, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
up until last year, there was no limit.
Okay, so but in those cases, if I understand, it's not that we're concerned about a family. It's more that we're concerned about an organization or an institution coming in and purchasing a large number of graves. So, okay, thank you. So this is a family asking to exceed this limit.
Yep, just private family use.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, the whole design of the cemetery was to have families bury their people in it. We don't want it to become somehow attractive to real estate trusts and things like that. So anyways, I think we're going to we need to take a vote on this, Tish. I think we do. Okay, so
Wait,
Rebecca.
so, Leo,
I think we
someone
need
needs
to
to
make
make a motion.
Okay, someone make the motion.
I make a motion to accept the purchase of 8 single graves by the Chan family.
I'll second that motion.
Anybody second it?
Yeah, I will second it, Jerry.
Okay, so let's go. Rebecca.
Aye. Approved.
Brian.
Aye.
Okay. Rod,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Leo, aye. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Okay, so the Chan family has granted their request. Okay, D4 is a filming request, a review of the application. And Tish, could you tell us a little about this? I don't quite get it, but it appears that this individual or group wants to come in and do some filming in the cemetery. Could you tell us a little bit more, Tish?
So there's
If I may just
actually
say,
Roberto
that's
might
why I'm
be
here.
here. Yeah,
Yeah,
he is in attendance. I haven't spoken to you yet, so
sure.
I have some questions also, but the application was included in the packet and they want to do some filming here. Roberto, if you would, I would let you present it.
Thank you. And thanks for allowing me to do this to the committee. And I have to say, I've been working with a number of different cemeteries, and I haven't had the pleasure of sitting in on a meeting like this. And I kind of wish that people could see it. You know, I really do. It's sort of government in action, you know, and it's a wonderful thing, actually, you know. No yelling, no screaming, you know, people being reasonable.
I apologize. My grandchildren are here and the babysitter arrived. The dog went wild. So
No, I think it makes you all very human. I think it's wonderful. So if I may, I'll try. I know you folks have a lot on your agenda, and I want to thank Aaron Stevens for suggesting that I, attend this meeting and sending me the link. So I'm a producer of a television series that is just now beginning to run around the country called World's Greatest Cemeteries. And it is a series in which the host, that's me, visits a cemetery. In fact, in our first season, it's London's Highgate Cemetery, Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, Spring Grove Cemetery in Arboretum in Cincinnati, and so forth. And in the show, I usually with a local tour guide, I visit the cemetery with my camera person and look at, first of all, an overall views of the cemetery, which I'll talk about in 1 second. And then I like to go in and look at the highlight of that cemetery as are generally agreed upon by cemetery aficionados. So, and then I like to find something interesting that most people wouldn't know about that cemetery. And let me give you a couple of quick examples. At Mount Auburn Cemetery, we take a look at some of the more famous places like the Mary Baker Eddy Monument as an example, just a visual look at that. And then right away we zero in on someone that no one's heard of, but is a person of historical interest. These individuals could be of interest to me because they had something to do with the formation of our country, or they did some wonderful thing that people should know about, and so on. I work with local historians and local cultural specialists. I often work with authors. And the show has just begun airing on stations around the country, on public television stations all across the country. My background is, prior to this, I was the first artist in residence at Mount Auburn Cemetery from 2014 to 2016, where I created 29 short films about some of the people interred there, as well as films about nature, trees, the horticulture there, and the landscaping. Prior to that, I had an artist residency at Harvard Forest in Petersham, Massachusetts, where I did a piece about how the Puritans and Native Americans met in the year 1630, to be very specific, and the different ways that they looked at that landscape there. That project was met with critical acclaim. I also did a project, an exhibit at the Arnold Arboretum about the trees in my town, which is Newton, Massachusetts. And so I spent a year filming and photographing trees and building stories around that. So that's sort of my background. And my request, as you can see there from the paperwork, is to come in with myself and a camera person, possibly one other staff person, and give a guided tour essentially of the things that, again, are probably pretty well known about the cemetery, like Author's Ridge, and then some interesting fact or facts that probably your tour guide knows that I don't know about at this point. That's a general overview. It takes about 1 day to film. It would take all day. We don't like to, I happen to know how much work goes in behind the scenes to keep these cemeteries looking great. And so we don't come in before visiting hours and we don't leave after visiting hours. We use cameras that are operated by batteries, and lighting, if at all, is very gentle lighting operated, also by batteries. So in other words, no wires or anything like that. And we're also very, very respectful of mourners. We know that most of the cemeteries we go into are still operating. So we're very respectful of those. That's a general overview. And yeah, so that's basically it. So I really would love to take any questions that you have. Now, I did supply links and all that in my application, but this is a live meeting, so you probably haven't had a chance to look at those. So that's just a quick overview. Before I feel like I'm boring you, so I'll bet you have questions.
No, this is very interesting. I'm glad you're here. This is good. Does anybody have any questions for Roberto? Rebecca?
All hands go up.
Yeah,
I may have missed it, but when do you plan, what is your plan date for doing this? Or
well,
do
I
you
would
have
have
one yet?
loved to have done it a couple of weeks ago, but that wasn't possible. So I would like to do it in this fall foliage
The
time.
fall.
That's the time to do it, right around here.
Yeah.
And so lovely. By the way, I should say, without patting myself on the back, my crew and I make sure that the images are really gorgeous. I mean, why else do people visit cemeteries if they're not mourning, right? The other things you might be wondering, if I'm, doing Père Lachaise in Paris and Highgate in London and Mount Auburn, then why am I choosing a cemetery in a smaller town like yours? Well, the answer is that one day, it was during the pandemic, I happened to be driving around and I stumbled upon your cemetery and I was so charmed. It's got so much charm. There's a hillside area that I thought was particularly just pastoral and lovely. I love the fact that it's kind of in the middle of the town now. I know a lot of these cemeteries. Oh, by the way, Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn is another one that's already in the series. I know that I loved some of the older stones, like the slate stones. I see also that you're still working, as evidenced by this meeting, still interring people, as it were. And I happen to have worked with a lot of authors in my previous career. I worked with some famous authors like John Updike and oh gosh, quite a few. And I'm partial to authors. So of course I saw the sign for Author's Ridge and my heart skipped a beat. I also know that from the standpoint of being a television producer, I know that some of our New England authors and intellectuals and thinkers are known outside of this region. There would be people from around the world who would know some of our names. In fact, as an example, when in London, as part of the piece on Highgate, I did a segment about George Eliot. Famously, she wrote Silas Marner and Middlemarch and so forth and so on. So she's an author that probably, well, I know a lot of people around the world have read her works. And so I think for a public television audience, I think they would be tickled pink to know that some of these famous names that are interred in your cemetery, they literally are buried somewhere. I think a lot of people don't really get that these famous people they've always heard of are actually in a cemetery somewhere. The other things I wanted to tell you, and to be completely honest, there are certain cemeteries around the world that are hugely famous. And there are certain mausoleums and tombs, like for instance, the Great Pyramid at Giza, right? That is a mausoleum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone knows about that. But I'm on a bit of a mission to get people to go to their local cemetery and see who's there. I now live in a town called Holden, Massachusetts, which is in central Massachusetts area. And guarantee there happens to be a historic cemetery like literally in my backyard. and I could throw a stone and hit any headstone or footstone. And whatever that stone hits, there's going to be a story, right? There's going to be a story of that person. So that's kind of what I'm keen on, is bringing these stories to life. And again, showing beautiful places. I've been to Concord Center many, many times over the years as a tourist for, canoeing on the Sudbury, is that the Sudbury River right there? Canoeing on the river and walking around the houses of famous writers there. And I somehow never noticed that cemetery until just a little bit this past year.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an overview.
Great. Other questions, Rebecca?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
Tish, just to follow up with Tish, are any interments scheduled for October 11th and 12th right now?
No, we're actually, well, it doesn't really mean anything, but we're not here on the 11th because it's Columbus Day.
That's right.
So there wouldn't be any staff around. The 12th, no. There is nothing scheduled yet. No.
And in the absence of staff, is there any obstacle to having Roberto and his team come on what is a holiday for you? I mean, it's October 11th is the date. I'm just asking the practicalities.
We sometimes will, when some people come in, we do meet them in the morning. We give them their, basically their permit to have for their records and to have with them in case anybody has questioned what they're doing. But I could email it as well.
Yeah. If we go forward, you can deal with that administrative
Right,
issue.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would just ask to be notified of the actual day. I see you have a rain date. It rains every day now, so I'm not sure.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so just to know when you were gonna be here would be good, just so we know you're here.
So again, it is that I found it's best to get 2 days, we're going to shoot on one day, but just because of rain. And there have been times when I've flown across the country and it rains for 3 straight days. And let me tell you, that's expensive. So, but hopefully it'll be one or the other of those days. But I certainly would reach out.
Just so we know you're here, yeah.
Of course, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And
just want to
Roberto,
know too.
pardon?
Oh, sorry. Hi, this is Erin Stevens. I'm the film liaison for the town. I also just wanted to let everybody know that I'll also be in touch with Roberto just so that he has my contact information and we will be in contact and making sure that things are running smoothly throughout the day.
All right. And then Roberto, the question I had is, I'm sure you're aware, but there are 2 other cemeteries in the town. Would this just be, or 2 other publicly owned cemeteries in the town? Would this just be filming in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, or are you also filming in the other 2 older ones right in the center of town?
Thank you for asking that. I'm particularly interested in authors and thinkers. And so I'm interested in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. By the way, I didn't really know what the name of the place was. I wasn't quite clear on that. And so it's the place that has the authors, which that's your cemetery, correct? So yeah, that's the one that I'm interested in. Because it's not just the cemetery, it's the people that are there. Yeah.
Well, I have a follow
Right.
A follow-up to that question. Well, so Roberto, if you are going to be filming in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery and you want to identify some grave sites that are lesser known but are very interesting, the person that you should be contacting is Leo, who knows a great deal about many people who are buried there and who has shown me some graves of some extraordinarily interesting people that are not known at all. So
Thank you.
you should touch base with him on that.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk
course,
to my
you have to
attorney,
give your-
Brian Davis, and see what I should charge, hourly charge.
No,
on
no,
this.
no, you have to give yourself several hours because it'll take a while to get the story out.
Well, I just
yeah,
want to know.
I'd be
I just
glad
want to know
hear
why
it,
we
but-
weren't the first season worthy. I forget Paris and all these other places. I think we're first season worthy, not
Yeah.
second season worthy.
I think, from what I can read from the committee, I think we're pretty enthusiastic about this, Roberto, and anything you need, just let us know.
I mean, one thing,
Yes.
what we would ask though, one, if you could give me your email address, I can send you the permit. Also, when you're here filming, we do ask that you stick to the authors and the famous people. And that if any other people's headstones are visible in the video, that you try to blur the name, just because we do try to protect the privacy of people who happen to be buried around somebody more famous.
Yeah, I
And if you
understand.
do find that one person who has a backstory that no one knows about, maybe run it by us before including it in the film, only because you may want to check with the family first.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. I'm laughing with you, not at you. Yeah.
There's a lot, the authors' families are used to seeing their families' headstones wherever, in magazines and videos and things like that, but other people aren't necessarily expecting that to happen.
Absolutely. So I should say that we like to get overall shots. There are two ways we do that. One is we have very nice cameras, and also I'm a FAA certified drone pilot, and I like to get those. But that is dependent upon not only your rules and your permission, but also I know that obviously it's around airports in that area. So that's something which I would check with the FAA.
Yeah, Hanscom's pretty close, so that's something that you would have to, yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I have my
Yeah,
life-
Roberto, I can help you with that as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If there's anything you're concerned about like that, I should also say that it's nice if I can find, people who, like, we use this term diverse people, and unexpected places. That's something I love doing. For instance, I found, I happen to have found out that a famous African-American poet named Phyllis Wheatley is buried in a cemetery in Boston's North End, which I don't think people would imagine that. I'm just being totally upfront with you. I like to find famous women, authors and thinkers and so forth. So in some of my other places, we've identified people like Dorothea Dix, who was a mental health reformer in the 19th century and the first Civil War superintendent of nurses, and other people like that. So I just want to say that, and I bet you folks know, obviously, way more about your place than I do. So anything like that I think might be of interest to the growing public television audience that is really much more diverse, I'm really quite keen on as well. So just want to share that.
Have you seen our map? We have a map that lists over 40 of the more well-known people that are here. So some of those people may be of interest to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll be sure to have a look at that.
I can, if you send me your email address, I can email it to you.
I'll be happy to.
Sure.
I'd also throw out, just for diversity, although it is outside the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, but the John Jack grave is a very interesting grave on our old burial hill. He was a slave who earned his own income and became free. And when he passed away, of course, here we have great patriots, but we also had Tories. And so it's a very interesting epitaph that one of the Tories kind of drafted because the patriots used to walk up there on their Sundays during these long meetings and would read the headstone. So it's a very interesting one, although outside in the old burial ground. But
well, I really appreciate that. I have to say that sometimes I will say now buried nearby is, and that's totally fair. Again, I want people to go to cemeteries and look and see who's. I want them to read the epitaphs and look at the shapes of the headstones and check out the cool Victorian era or prior symbols and look up what they could possibly mean and all that. And I want more people to do it, and I think, the public television type audience are generally pretty responsible folks. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna bring off because I think it might be awkward for you to be here while you folks are deliberating, but I want to thank you for allowing me to come into your meeting. I really mean that, and I really wish somehow to get, it's giving an idea about showing more what goes on behind the scenes, because it's unbelievable how much work goes into keeping these places looking great. And before you had me, before I got a chance to talk just now, I heard a lot of that, you know, and I wish the public would know more about that. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next issue is
Yeah.
Deepa. What?
Leo,
Hold on.
sorry, excuse me. You need to entertain a motion for, to approve the permit
Oh, yeah.
for the application.
So I'll make
Okay.
to accept the Celestial Media LLC's application for filming in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery and adjacent cemeteries on October 11th and 12th, or a date that works best for them.
I second the motion.
Okay, let's take a vote.
I,
Brian,
Aye.
Rod,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Rebecca,
I,
Leo, aye. Okay, unanimous. Okay, so we accept the motion, or we
Accept the
give
permit.
the permit. And what is the follow-up though, Tish? So what happens next? Are you going to get his email and get an application to him? Is that what the next move on this is?
We have his application. I just sent Aaron an email asking for Roberto's email address. So when I
Okay.
have that, I can send him the permit and I can send him our map.
Perfect, okay.
mhm.
All right,
And ju-
and then now D5 is a discussion letter to select board regarding the cemetery trails. And I think, Brian, this is your issue. And did you want to talk to us about it?
Yeah, just, bring it forward just for your guys' consideration, your thoughts. This kind of goes in line to some of the bicycle concerns that the committee's been working on for, the last year or so. So coming up, and to the best of my knowledge, this is, as I understand it, in November, the select board will be kind of holding a special session to discuss what they call the Envision Concord, which is the long-range planning document that was created in 2018. And this planning document covers a wide array of different concerns to Concord. But I think what's most interesting to this committee is the section on circulation and transportation. And specifically, it kind of discusses the reformatory trail in a number of instances.
Mhm.
And it also talks about improving trail access to historical attractions, and will be focused on transportation routes. So, I don't think there's any concrete specific plans that our committee needs to necessarily address, but I think that it would be an opportunity that we should just raise our general concerns about bicycle activity in the cemetery to the select board, so that they can be fully informed as they discuss these issues. I think specifically one of the issues that they'll be looking at is whether or not, anything needs to be done to the reformatory branch trail, or whether they're going to leave it as is. We had drafted a letter last year and sent it to the Trails Committee and the Transportation Committee just to highlight our concerns. And so I tried to take that letter and then slightly tweak it to just be more specific for our select board and our general concerns. I think a draft of that was in the packet. And if people thought that was a worthy thing to send to the select board, I'm happy to discuss it, happy to take edits if people wanted to edit the letter, or if people don't feel it's appropriate to send, also happy just to not take any action. So, and happy to answer any questions, I guess.
Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Well, I'll respond. Yeah, I thought the letter was terrific. It was more judicious and even-handed than I would have been, so I'm glad you wrote it. I have strong feelings about bicycles in the cemetery, and I guess my only question, or I would suggest that you've got a phrase at the end, or you have a statement at the end where you go through a list of potential ways that we can protect the cemetery, including, and I would just suggest striking entirely that whole last phrase about and the potential designation of any transportation routes through the cemetery. Because I just don't even like planting that picture of somehow there's this preferred way through the cemetery. But otherwise, I thought it stated the issues very well and very appropriately. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, go ahead, Rebecca.
it's just an editorial thing. Is it blanding or blandings with an S, turtle?
Blanding, B-L-A-N-D.
But is it apostrophe S? I don't know why I thought I heard blandings turtle. I could be wrong, sorry.
Don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at the paper and it is apostrophe S, Rebecca, so we can definitely make that edit as well.
Okay.
Blandings, yeah.
So-
Assuming
so-
that.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so do we need to,
Oh, I think Ron has.
Leo, yeah, Leo, I have one more.
Yeah.
First of all,
okay, Rod,
yeah,
yeah.
Ryan, thanks a lot. This is, I agree with Jerry. This is really well written. I just want to follow up on a detail that goes into sort of the request that we're making of the town in the last paragraph. We say, work together to help us protect the cemetery in that last sentence, which I think is but I'm wondering if you might want to, do you have any specific ideas about what would be the best way to work together? Do you want them to notify us, for example, of any issue that might affect the cemetery? Do you want us to, have an observer at some of these meetings? I'm on the Council of Aging, and I observe 2 other committees to report back to the Council of Aging. So just maybe in terms of, I really like the fact that you've been very specific in describing the issue. I just worry that if we're not so specific in describing the action, that nothing will happen. So that's more the question. What would you have in mind? And I know this is a first campaign, and this is, we'll be able to cite this, but it would be nice saying, work together and include us to help protect this. Work together and include us to help protect. And we can work with the various committees about what makes the most sense of inclusion. I can imagine one of us want to be near any committee that considers the reformatory trail paving issue. We'd want to be participants. We'd want to know about it. That sort of thing. So, and maybe others, we just need to be observers and report back to the committee. So I don't have a specific suggestion for you, but I just wanted to convey that kind of general, request to you.
Thanks, Rod. So I guess I'll just throw it out to other folks. I mean, is there any language that they think's best there? So instead of to work together, to include us, to include the cemetery?
We request, Concord's boards and committees include us.
Include us, okay.
Yeah, to protect the cemetery, including bicycle, that sort of thing. So include us.
To include us.
The nature of including us can be varied depending upon the committee and the topic and the issues.
Great.
We're speaking on behalf of thousands of families, hundreds of families, and thousands of families that are protecting their loved ones in the cemetery.
Okay.
Across generations.
Right.
across generations.
Mm.
Great. Any other edits? Any other thoughts? Happy to make them. Okay, so I have, we're going to change it to Blanding Startle. Instead of work together, we'll have to include us to protect the cemetery, and I will strike and the potential designation of any transportation routes through the cemetery. Is that fair?
That's good. Yeah,
Great.
thank you very much, Brian. I think that's great. Any other comments? If not, we'll just move on to the next, which is, oh.
Leo, do we need to vote to accept? Or do we need to do that, Justine?
Well, it says it's a discussion, so I don't know. Justine, what do you think?
It's probably not a bad idea, because basically what you're gonna do is you'll vote to forward the letter to the select board
Oh, yeah.
with the edits. And then Brian can make the edits and we can print it out, have him sign it, and we can just send it from there. So if someone wants to move to accept the letter with edits.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we accept the letter that Brian has drafted as amended per the discussion at today's meeting.
I'll
I second it.
second that motion.
I second it.
Okay. Well, then, let's have a vote. Yes. Okay, so Rebecca,
I,
Brian,
Aye.
Rod,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Leo, aye. So unanimous. This is a very agreeable group. We seem to be unanimous on almost everything. Let's get into some controversy here. So, and we're running out of time. We almost half an hour though. Okay, discussion of ground cover. And so I think if you get a chance to go over the cemetery, you can see the work that was done by Tish on Ephraim Wales Bull's grave site, and then by the contractor Einstein on the other two sites. And so what we're seeing is a lot of growth where it's shaded and it's coming in good, and it might very well last till next year. We won't know until next year. But I think it's safe to say that a lot of the places that were already, more or less missing vegetation are going to still be in the same condition next spring. So I think on those places, we've got to look at alternative ground covers, and preferably, and this is my opinion, but preferably native species. So along these lines, Rod and I just happened to be over at the Garden in the Woods in Framingham, and that is part of a native plant trust where there's quite a number of acres with just native New England species. And so we were noticing that there are some areas very much like ours that have things that grow. And so we just happened to talk to one of the groundskeepers there, who turns out to be a very knowledgeable guy. And we explained, we brought in loam and we brought in grass seed and put it in place, and it just doesn't seem to be working. And much to my amazement, the guy says, well, that's about the worst thing you can do. He said, if it is a place that had never had loam in it before, and you put loam in, you diminish the chances of success on growing certain types of native species that would probably go there on their own. But to make sure of this is that we're looking next spring, maybe even this fall, finding the price of certain plugs of native species that can be put in to cover some of these spots where we're getting some significant erosion. So I'd like to, Rod, perhaps you can talk about, because you're a little more articulate than this old boy. So could you tell what your thoughts were when we were over there talking to these people?
Yes, thanks. So this was a really useful visit for us. We, by happenstance, totally by coincidence, this young man who is one of the horticulturalists heard Leo and I saying, well, wait a minute, that plant looks like it would be a great candidate. He said, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we said, we're looking for native plants that may have a good chance of surviving in some of our more challenging areas and help us to restore ground cover. So he gave us between half a dozen and a dozen suggestions. We had also collected some other names of plants that we saw, which are all labeled with their scientific names there. And I'm assembling sort of information sheets on each one of them. This was an information gathering task, and we continue to take a look at potential sites in the cemetery that may be candidates for some kind of a small scale test sometime in the spring. Now, we are at the early stages of doing this. Before we do anything, we've got to review this list and our potential sites with Tish and with Aaron, just to review what the history is of the site, what the history may be with using these plants, in other sections of the cemetery, and to refine that. But each week, so we spent the summer kind of looking and trying to identify all the sites that might need an intervention to restore vegetation in the Sleepy Hollow proper. I've taken a look at the old cemetery and also the old hill burying ground, and those are, interestingly, there's much less erosion in those two cemetery sites than there is in Sleepy Hollow. So that's good. I mean, that's fantastic. We'll continue to try and identify plants that would be useful all the various locations of the cemetery, including the knoll, which I know has a crabgrass problem. And maybe we can find something to compete with the crabgrass by putting some plugs. So we are gathering that information, and at some point in the near future, it probably won't be the next meeting. It may not be until January, when we have our committee meetings, that we'll be able to have a quick presentation of the things we found and some very specific proposals about what we might do. But I want to make sure we've reviewed that all with Tish, with Aaron, before we come to the committee, make sure that our recommendations are based on fact and are consistent with the previous experience of the staff here. So that's where we are. We're continuing to gather this information. I do want to point out that, again, serendipitously, I was over at Junction Park in West Concord, and there was a plant, rupture wort, that is being used as a ground cover there, and it was amazing. It was like an artificial green carpet, and it's rupture wort, and it is native to the area, and it is growing like beyond bounds, filled in every gap in this area of Junction Park. So it gave me optimism that if we find the right native plants and we put them in the right places, that we may be able to stop the erosion and get some and regain and restore some of the ground cover in some of the more exposed portions of the older cemetery. But that's for you, Leo.
Okay, and thank you very much. I'd also like to say that I think one thing we need to consider driving towards is getting it so that we don't have to cut the grass everywhere, because this is a macabre conversation, but most of the older part of the cemeteries, say pre-1950, they didn't have casket liners. So the heavy equipment that's cutting the grass is actually crushing crushing the boxes, and you can see it throughout the cemetery. And so that's one of the things I think is important to us. If we can, I know we're going to have grass cutting, but if we can eliminate it in certain parts by putting in native species that don't need to be cut, perhaps we'll be able to, get to where we want to be. And the other thing I would like to point out is that certainly in the older parts of the cemetery and in the two parts downtown, they didn't have lawnmowers when they first built these cemeteries. So we as Americans have been brought up on better homes and gardens and a vision of what royalty lives like and has these lawns. I don't think we need those everywhere. I think we should try to eliminate as much of them as possible in the older parts of the cemetery. So that's my spiel. And anybody have any comments on this discussion on ground cover?
I just love what you guys said. I think it's terrific. Fight that erosion. We need to find alternatives to grass. Clearly, I mean, it's been a number of years we've been trying to do it.
Yeah.
It just keeps being, it's wash and repeat. So anything to change up the current status, I think is terrific.
Yeah, I do, and I want to commend Tish and Aaron for trying this, and on that Melvin lot, it's been 3 times, and we have to accept that we need to change, and we can't just do things the way it has been doing. So let's go back to where it was when Ralph Waldo Emerson dedicated this back in 1855. Okay, so any other comments?
Well, I'll just toss in, my 2 cents on this, and, linking it to the idea of the columbarium. I mean, what you've been talking about and what you're doing will inform what we do with this columbarium. Because, the landscaping, the place is really important. So yeah, well, you're doing some really pioneering work.
Yeah, Jerry, thank you, but I got to tell you, I'm surprised. I hear about global warming all the time, and when I talk to what I think are authorities on this, I get a different answer every time on how you deal with it. So we're really in uncharted territories, because my original thought was, if this was a white oak and it was planted there 150 years ago, and now we've chopped it down, and for good reasons, they die and they rot. So why don't we just put another white oak there? And a lot of people are telling me, because maybe white oaks aren't going to be here 100 years from now. That might be the wrong plant to put in. Maybe you put in a plant that's prominent in the Carolinas or something like that. So a lot of work and research has to get into doing this. And I think the best place to start is what Rod talked about. Let's put just some plugs in and see what it takes to get this started. We might put 5 different species in a certain spot, maybe only 2 or 1, or maybe none of them will take, but we got to get started on this. So that's it for the discussion on the ground cover, unless someone else has something to say.
Just one more comment. With global warming and the rain we had this year, we may start looking into mangroves.
Yeah. Or mud plants or something like that. No, I agree. As a very wise person said, if you can't grow grass this year, then it can't be grown.
Yeah.
Okay, so item D5, committee members' comments relative to issues contained in this agenda or feedback received from residents since the last meetings.
Maybe I could just talk for a second, Leah. Just thinking about something is, when I first joined this committee, I never realized that cremations have become such a popular route for folks. And, just looking at our last minutes from our last meeting, we had 1 full burial, but 12 cremations. And, when I actually bought my burial plots, but, I never really thought about, in the end, will I be cremated or will it be a full body type of thing? In the last two meetings we've had folks buying, more than the 6 plots, the 8 plots.
Yeah,
And, that's a minimum of 8 full bodies, but it's 32 potential cremation spots. And I was just wondering, are other people, when they're sitting down thinking, how many lots do I need? Do they have that information in front of them? And could we provide, maybe kind of that thought to them as they're thinking, each family is going to know how many they need, and we'll make that decision. But I was looking at our cemetery fee schedule and rate, and was just wondering, could we, for next meeting, think about adding language where, maybe we describe that, you're buying 8 lots, that's 32 potential, cremation spots, just so that people have all the information when they're making their appropriate decision. And I think that there's a benefit potentially to that, because, if somebody buys 8 lots, but they start cremating and now they have more lots than they need. I mean, obviously the vast majority gets sold back. We know that because we're always repurchasing them. But, there is the potential to have maybe these ghost lots, that they're just kind of lots that just aren't really being used. And, if we're really trying to manage our property for the next couple of 100 years, we really want to minimize that. And so I was just thinking maybe we could develop language to include in our fee schedule that might help educate the consumer when they're selecting their number of lots. And so I just throwing it out to just get a general feel. I mean, I could, for our next meeting, try and think about drafting some kind of language. If people weren't interested in that, then you can just forget it. But I don't know, we've had, I don't have no problem going over our limit, but just, I just want to make sure that people are fully informed that, that they may not be thinking of these things.
The number of interments that we allow per grave is in the regulations, and we go over that extensively at every lot sale.
Do you? Okay.
We do.
Yeah, to back up, Tish, when my wife and I purchased our lot shortly before she passed away, I remember reviewing with Tish, that this was a lot that would have full body burials or cremation burials. So I think it's there, even if it may not be in the document that you reviewed, Brian. I suspect it's standard procedure, Tish, when you review this.
It's in the regulations, but we definitely go over it sometimes multiple times during a lot sale. Yeah.
Great. And in full disclosure, I did not buy mine from Tish, so I'm sure she does go over it quite a bit. So great. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
okay. And any other comments, committee member comments? I guess not. D6, public comments. I hope, are there any public comments? I can't hear any. Does anybody hear us? Okay. I see Eleanor Carr, but we couldn't hear you.
No, I haven't. I'm speaking now.
Okay.
What about the Reformatory Branch Trail? I did hear the subject come up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to kind of,
Well,
I think what we're going to do is we're sending a letter just to, I don't think we're taking any position on the Reformatory Branch Trail, or I think it's a little from this committee. I think what we are is we're just trying, as the select board is discussing the Envision Concord long-term plan. I think we're just sending a letter to just try and inform them that we have concerns about bicycle usage in the cemetery at this point.
Doesn't the cemetery connect to the wildlife sanctuary? It does.
Are you talking about the wildlife sanctuary, meaning the Great Meadows?
Exactly.
Okay, we'll be a butt to it, but we don't control the Great Meadows land. We do have a wetlands in back of the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. You know, and that's what our concern is that the bicycles will come off of the reformatory trail and go into the cemetery. That's what our concern is, and we want to be included in discussions on this subject whenever there's a public meeting about it.
What's the problem with it?
Well, thank you. Yes, bicycles have the potential to come into the cemetery from the reformatory branch trail. And I don't think that that's a good thing.
No.
And I think, well, thank you for your comments. And I think what we're going to see is that there's going to be probably a pretty lengthy discussion on this in the coming year. I talked to a lot of people about it, and the majority of the people I talked to seem to have the same concern, but it has to go through a public process. And so all we have done, and in Brian's letter is request that we be kept informed about this.
Yes, it's the speed, you know, potentially, if that trail is paved, and that then you have people coming into the cemetery traveling at a high speed as well.
Right. I would encourage you to get involved in this meetings that Brian is talking about, because those will be the people that make the decisions. We can give comments and all, but we don't actually control the paving of that old railroad tracks.
Thank you. I understand that. It's the Trails Committee.
Brian, is it the Trails Committee, or is it some other entity that's proposing to pave or interested in paving the reformatory trail?
I think it is more than just the trails. I think it's several committees. I think there's a transportation committee that's involved. I believe there's a bicycle subgroup off of that transportation committee. And so I think that's what the select board is looking to do in November. It's to have a number of those voices. It's going to have a number of discussion points about transportation, but it would also be, I think, the reformatory branch trail would be part of that as well. So I think there's multiple committees that are evaluating the appropriateness of any improvements, if any, to the reformatory branch.
Leaving it in its present state is probably the best option.
A lot of people voice that. I hear.
I see everybody's head moving on that one, but well, thank you very much for sitting through our whole meeting, and I hope we've addressed the issue appropriately for you.
Thank you. I will, continue to, observe and think about it.
Okay.
Great. Okay, if there's any other public comments?
Linda.
Yes. Linda Escondido, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, as the select board liaison to this committee, I want to tell you how impressed I am with the seriousness with which you're taking up all of the issues on your agenda. That's terrific. The other thing I would like to, and I'm sure the select board is going to be looking forward to receiving your letter. Certainly at the liaison report I gave previously for a meeting I attended, I commented on concerns that you had as a group regarding bicycles and other things off pavement in the cemetery. So I think they're going to welcome your letter. I wanted to comment generally about trying to be kept informed. I think it's, given the way all of our committees meet and the multiple committees that are addressing some of the same topics as Brian just pointed out, to keep knowing who to keep informed when. The burden is really on us as citizens. So for example, as a citizen, outside of my role as a select board member, I'm routinely perusing as many agendas as I can to see what the issues are that are coming up, which is sometimes how I best get informed and in a timely way about where certain topics are going to be covered. So I just encourage all of you to go to the website and do that, particularly when you're concerned about a specific issue. And then you also have colleagues on these various committees who are keeping you informed. It's unrealistic to expect that whether it be the select board or any other committee could keep you informed and keep everyone informed. I think the best we do is to put the agendas out there, and then when there are public forums to make that information known. Regarding the topic of the reformatory branch, there is town-wide discussion about this, which some of us have been paying attention to closely and have heard. But no actions, no definitive actions have been taken by any of the town committees on this issue. And I think, at least I would assume that most of my colleagues on the select board expect that there will be ample time for public discussion about this. That's not to say that as individual citizens, we don't have the responsibility to bird dog any topic that we're particularly interested in and we know is coming up in a variety of settings. So thank you very much for all the work you do. I'm sorry to be a little long-winded here, and I'm sorry I got cut off, but I'm also getting ready for another meeting. So thank you.
I don't envy you that.
Thank you, everyone. See you next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.